My journey is a savings account for literacy, represents the wealth of knowledge and constant improvement I have gained. Constantly depositing skills on my journey to where I am now, my literacy path has been a long and fruitful experience that has accumulated to a large bottom line. Some of these skills I've learnt predominantly by myself, some were mainly taught to me, however many people have contributed to my literacy journey. Teachers, family and friends, my own personal experiences, but at the end of the day, it is I who had to learn these skills, to understand the processes, and to deposit them in the bank that is the brain. Unlike my favourite subject at school, maths, we start to learn the basics in kindergarten, some case maybe maybe as late as primary school, if you're a whiz kid like myself, before kindergarten. I believe I started my literacy journey from the moment I heard my parents speak for the first time. From the moment I started to hear their voices, I would have started to develop an understanding for the English language, and hence when it finally came time to converse with the outside world, naturally, my first word was mama. However, even though my first word was in English, like many modern day Australians, I was raised bilingual. My grandparents migrated from the Netherlands after the war, and just like a lot of Europeans, they are extremely well versed in many languages, especially English. My parents always wanted my opa and oma to speak Dutch around me so that I would pick it up as if a language was like money on the ground. My mother, being a second generation Australian with her roots being Irish, she knew not a Dutch word, so my grandparents were hesitant to speak Dutch around my brother and I when she was around too. I was able to communicate well enough with my grandparents in Dutch for about 6 years, but once I hit primary school, it seemed like it was just stolen from me. It was due to this that I can now only say I love you in Dutch to my family as I walk out the door saying goodbye. Even so, my grandparents and parents have obviously had a profound impact on my literacy ability, especially my opa, who was a banker in his day. Even though it was my parents who read to me every night, and my dad took leave when I was really little, so he was around a lot, I still remember my grandparents taking me during the week when I was 2 to 4, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and until I went to kinder. Not to mention picking me up from primary school 3 days a week and dinner at their house twice. So I was around them a lot. After all this exposure to English being spoken as a second language, by the time I was at kinder, my accent was really hard for some kids to understand. This caused problems when I started kinder with my teachers as well, because they struggled to recognise whether I understood or not. However, once I had been exposed to the kindergarten scene for a while, and I started Auskick, I began to develop my Aussie accent you hear today. Throughout kindergarten, I loved to paint, and I think this helped my literacy development through the development of ideas and concepts and creativity. Not only did painting develop the ability of creativity, but it enhanced my communication, as I was always trying to communicate something, even if I didn't really know what it was. Later in life, I've noticed that the enhanced skill of communication now has a wider berth, and when we talk about visual and physical communication in class, not just verbal, the painting has definitely contributed to that. I am one of the sportiest people, if not the sportiest person I know. Sport can relate to literacy development in many ways, one of which is of course communication. Forever playing team sports such as football and cricket, I've developed a confidence in my communication that not only helps me on field, but off field as well. It has enhanced my confidence to talk to adults I've only just met, or convey messages in group work at uni. Sport has also played a big part in my development of important written skills as well, as during high school I helped run our volleyball program. This meant I would have to draft proposal to school council or apply for the Bunnings sausage sizzles, draft sponsorship inquiries and filter through applications from businesses for said sponsorships. This has enabled me to grow in my ability to write formally, but also write formal documents such as my resume. It also led me to read my first book front to back, The Almanac of AFL Football from 2005. Because I'm just a little bit of a nutter, I love to read all the statistics. Even though it wasn't the best book, it still got me into enjoying reading, and from there I read a lot of football books such as Specky McGee. It was about this time, so kindergarten to primary school, that every night before going to bed, Dad would read me a book, and before long I would read them with him. Of course, reading has an impact on one's literacy progression. However, as Dad and I would read lots and lots of really short books, I was exposed to a wide variety of vocabulary and ideas. Along with reading every night to help me get to sleep, I would listen to cassette tapes, such as Winnie the Pooh or Thomas the Tank Engine. At the beginning, it was just a technique to help me to soothe me into sleep, but as I grew older, these tapes progressed to audiobooks such as Harry Potter. This continued up until early high school, and although it started as a tool to help me get to sleep, it progressed into a nighttime ritual that I'd really look forward to. Almost every night, I'd have to rewind the tapes bit by bit to try and find where I'd fallen asleep and start again. But this wasn't really a chore, it was just something I enjoyed, because that was how I was progressing with not really reading a lot, maybe a book every couple of months, but always listening to books, so I was still getting the same vocabulary and idea growth as you would read. I believe these tapes and audiobooks sort of helped with my creativity as well, so when I was telling stories or creative writing in high school, it really helped there as well. Currently, my literacy savings account is my normal savings account is looking very healthy. I've been working quite a bit, saving up a lot of cash. However, my literacy savings account is also doing really well. It doesn't really decrease, I'm just forever depositing. Recently, I deposited the experience of contributing more in class discussions. This literacy class has really made me feel comfortable in contributing in class. During high school, I didn't really feel comfortable joining in discussions. I'd answer questions, but not really the discussion side. So during the last couple of months, I've really noticed I'm getting more involved in the discussions, as well as, through that, developing essential skills, understanding other people's views in a deeper meaning, but also furthering my ability to work as a team. Although I would say my literacy savings account is strong and has a large figure at the bottom line, one part of my literacy has always troubled me. From primary school to uni, I've always struggled with my spelling. My major weakness in literacy has been identified over many years of testing, from NAPLAN in primary school and high school to more recently the BKSB. Spelling and grammar in written pieces have always been an issue. At my primary school in the beginning, we had spelling levels. So we do weekly quizzes, then we get our spelling words for the week, and at the end, based on how you went, you get put into groups. I was always in the bottom group, always, without fail. Luckily for me, my mum, although she was a high school teacher, she was still a teacher, so she still had the techniques and stuff. So she would often 3-4 times a week just spend time with me, like 2 hours, just working solely on my spelling. Didn't really do much because the BKSB notified it as a problem as well, so thanks, Mum. Although, like most kids, and this is probably where I went wrong, the easiest and ones I enjoyed the most were on the computer, and you can't really interact as well than you can writing. Although my mum was clever, she just bought me brightly coloured books with words to trace and stuff like that. Rote learning isn't sort of the best for spelling. Sort of having a deeper understanding of the word is better. Literacy in high school has always troubled me. I struggled in English class, didn't do the homework, my essays were drivel at best. Although this did progress towards the latter years of schooling, I certainly struggled in VCE, especially with text response essays. However, now moving on to uni, I'm quite enjoying my literacy classes. I could stand here for hours and rattle off more stories of my heritage and my experiences. However, to truly sum up my literacy experience, I have to go no further than my family and my granddad, who's a banker. My family have always been at the heart of my literacy development, from learning my first word to listening to this speech during the week. They have truly enriched all my abilities in literacy over the years, and without them, my savings account wouldn't have been so large. Thank you. How far over did I go?